you're 58 with $3 million saved and planning to retire at 60, you're probably in a much better position than you realize. Yet I see this all the time. People with your exact financial profile work years longer than necessary, driven by fear, behavioral traps, and planning blind spots they don't know exist. In this video, I'm breaking down the real math behind safe withdrawal rates, the psychology that keeps successful savers chained to their desks, and the specific planning mistakes that create unnecessary anxiety about retirement. By the end, you'll understand exactly why you might be working longer than you need to, and what you can actually do about it. I'm Megan Ramshaw, CFP and lead advisor at MOKAN Wealth. Let's get into it. Let's start with what the actual research says about withdrawal rates for someone in your situation. Most people have heard of the 4% rule, but here's what you need to know in 2025. Recent research from Morningstar, which is one of the leading authorities in retirement planning, now recommends a safe initial withdrawal rate of 3.7% for 2025 new retirees planning a 30-year horizon. This is down from 4% in 2024 due to high equity valuations, lower bond yields, and expected market moderation. So what does this mean for your $3 million portfolio? At a 3.7% withdrawal rate, you could safely withdraw $111,000 in year one, adjusted annually for inflation. This assumes 30 to 50% equity allocations where higher stocks increase volatility without necessarily boosting the safe rate. This is before Social Security or any pensions kick in. Now here's where it gets interesting. That same research shows that if you're willing to be slightly flexible with your spending, adjusting in down years, you could potentially withdraw up to 4.8% safely. For your $3 million portfolio, that's $144,000 per year. But here's the reality check most people miss. You don't need your portfolio to last 30 years starting at age 60. You need it to last potentially 35 or even 40 years. For longer time horizons, research suggests slightly lower rates. But experts like Bill Bengen, who created the original 4% rule back in 1994, has updated his own work and now suggests rates closer to 5% are sustainable with proper planning and diversification. The bottom line is this: if you're 58 with $3 million and you're targeting retirement at 60, the math actually works better than most people think. Even at the conservative 3.7% rate, you're looking at over $100,000 per year before Social Security. Now let's talk about something that keeps a lot of early retirees up at night: sequence of returns risk. This is the danger of experiencing poor market returns early in retirement while making withdrawals. Here's why this matters so much for someone like you retiring at 60. Sequence of returns risk occurs when you lock in losses during downturns by selling investments to fund your lifestyle. This reduces your portfolio's principal and impairs its ability to recover, even if long-term average returns are positive. This risk is most acute in the first decade of retirement when your balance is largest. Let me give you a hypothetical example. Let's say two people both retire with $3 million. Both portfolios have the same average returns over 20 years. Both withdraw $120,000 annually, but one person retires right before a market crash and the other retires right before a bull market. The person who retired into the crash could run out of money 10 years earlier than the person who retired into the bull market, even though their average returns were identical. So how do we protect against this? The recommended strategy is a diversified, low volatility allocation, emphasizing capital preservation early in retirement. We call it a stable war chest. Here's what this looks like practically. You want to hold 3 to 5 years of living expenses, net of things like Social Security and pensions. So that's roughly $360,000 to $600,000. If you're spending $120,000 annually in cash, savings, or money markets. You draw from this during downturns, allowing your equities time to recover without forcing you to sell at a loss. This shift should happen at least 3 years out from retirement. The key takeaway here is that sequence of returns risk is real, but it's manageable with the right investment allocation and withdrawal strategy. You don't need to work longer to avoid it, you just need to plan for it. Let's talk about one of the most common traps I see with successful savers: the one more year syndrome. This describes retirees who delay spending or exiting work, fearing nest egg depletion despite having ample resources. You tell yourself, I'll just work one more year to be safe. Then next year comes and you say it again. Here's what's really happening. After decades of discipline, the transition from accumulation to spending triggers deep anxiety. Personalized factors like health concerns and family needs defy simple rules of thumb, which creates what researchers call calculation paralysis. So you default to what feels safe, just one more year of earning. But here's what you need to calculate. What's the true trade-off? Let's run the numbers for a hypothetical scenario. You're 58 with $3 million. If you work 2 more years to 60, your portfolio might grow to $3.3 million, assuming modest returns and continued savings. That extra $300,000 sounds great, right? But now let's look at the lifestyle cost. Those are 2 years of your 60s, what we call the go-go years, when you're healthiest and most active. Research shows that retirement spending peaks in your 60s and early 70s, then declines significantly. What this tells you is that the experience you could have in your early 60s, the travel, the activities, the time with family, those have a window. Delaying retirement means potentially missing that window when you're most able to enjoy it. That extra $300,000 in your portfolio might give you more security, but it comes at the cost of prime years you can never get back. Here's the framework I use with clients. Calculate how much enough really is. Run the projections. If your plan shows a 90% probability of success at age 60, working to 62 might increase that to 93%. Is that 3% increase worth 2 years of your life? For most people in your situation, the answer is no. You're already at a level 10 confidence financially. The additional security from working longer is minimal compared to the lifestyle cost. Let's bust a common myth that keeps people working unnecessarily. The idea that your retirement expenses stay constant or increase over time. The reality is very different, and understanding this is critical for your planning. What this means for you retiring at 60 with $3 million is this. You don't need to plan for constant spending of $120,000 per year for 35 years. You might spend $120,000 or even more in your 60s when you're traveling and active, but by your mid-70s, your spending naturally decreases, even if you maintain the same lifestyle. By your 80s, it decreases even more. This is what researchers call the go-go, slow-go, and the no-go years of retirement. When you factor these spending patterns into your projections, your $3 million portfolio looks even more solid. The typical retirement calculator assumes constant inflation-adjusted spending, but that overstates how much you'll actually need in your later years. A more accurate projection that accounts for declining spending shows that most people in your situation are actually overfunded, not underfunded. Here's where we tie everything together with scenario planning. This is the antidote to the fear and uncertainty that keeps you working. When you can see your financial future mapped out in multiple scenarios, best case, worst case, and most likely, you gain the confidence to make the decision that's right for your life, not just your portfolio. Let's walk through this with your hypothetical scenario, 58 years old, $3 million saved, planning to retire at 60. Here's what scenario planning looks like. In the best case scenario, markets perform well. You get 7 to 8% average returns, your spending is on the lower end because you're healthy and active. Social Security kicks in at 67, or whenever you decide to claim it. In this scenario, your portfolio not only lasts your lifetime, it actually grows. You might end up leaving a significant legacy to your heirs. Now the worst case scenario. Markets crash right after you retire. You experience negative returns in years 1 and 2 of your retirement. Your spending is higher than expected because of healthcare issues or family needs. Inflation runs higher than projected. Even in this scenario, with proper planning, a diversified allocation, and those cash reserves we talked about for sequence of returns risk, your portfolio still lasts until your 90s. You might need to make some adjustments, maybe reduce spending by 10 to 15% in down years, but you don't run out of money. The most likely scenario falls somewhere in between. You get average market returns around 6%, spending follows the typical pattern, higher in your early 60s and declining in your 70s and 80s. Social Security provides a base of income starting in your mid to late 60s. In this scenario, your $3 million is more than adequate. You maintain your lifestyle, you don't run out of money, and you likely leave something to your heirs. Here's what these scenarios show you. The downside risk is manageable, and the upside is significant. When you can see this mapped out, not just conceptually, but with actual numbers based on you and your specific situation, it removes the fear that's keeping you working. This is what I mean by a plan-led approach. You focus on living your best life, and we focus on the planning and investment management that supports it. This brings us to the most important point of this entire video. Comprehensive planning is what separates people who retire with confidence from people who work longer than necessary out of fear. Let me explain what I mean by comprehensive planning, because it's not just about having a number in your head or running a quick retirement calculator online. Comprehensive planning through our 5-seed system addresses the 5 key areas of retirement: income, taxes, investments, healthcare, and legacy. Each of these areas has to work together. You can't just optimize one and ignore the others. For example, you might have great investment returns, but if you're not tax efficient with your withdrawals, you're leaving money on the table. Or you might have plenty of assets, but if you haven't planned for healthcare costs before Medicare, you could face unexpected expenses that derail your confidence. Let's talk specifically about taxes, because this is huge for someone like you with $3 million, likely concentrated in pre-tax accounts like 401ks and IRAs. Without a tax plan, you could be paying more to Uncle Sam than necessary. We don't ignore your favorite uncle, but we do make sure you're not paying him more than your fair share. Here's a hypothetical example of what this looks like. Let's say you retire at 60 with $2.5 million in pre-tax accounts and $500,000 in after-tax accounts. Between 60 and when you start Social Security, say at age 67, you have a unique window for Roth conversions. Your income is low because you're not working. If you're strategic about it and can convert portions of your pre-tax IRA to Roth, filling up the lower tax brackets, say the 12% or 22% bracket. Why does this matter? Because once you hit 73 or 75, required minimum distributions kick in. If you haven't done Roth conversions, those RMDs could push you into the 24% bracket or higher. Plus, higher income means higher Medicare premiums through IRMA. We've seen scenarios where proper Roth conversion strategy saves clients hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetime, not to mention avoiding those high IRMA premiums. This is what a plan-led approach looks like. It's not guessing, it's not hoping the market cooperates, it's having a roadmap that accounts for all the variables. Withdrawal strategies, tax optimization, healthcare planning, and investment allocation that protects against sequence of returns risk. When you have this level of planning, the fear evaporates. You know exactly where you stand, what you can spend, and what adjustments to make if circumstances change. At MOKAN Wealth, this is exactly what we do for self-made 401k and IRA millionaires. We help you get from where you are to where you want to be. You live your best life, and we handle the planning and investments. It's what we do best. Get started now and see if we're a fit. Thanks.